All right, we are back on Materialism Island because we are living in a material world, and I am a material guy. And I have a question. What is the deal with this island? What are we doing here?
Materialism Island, interestingly, is a loaded word, right? Because materialism has this sense of, oh, I'm focused on money and material stuff, right? Which, yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
This goes deeper, and this is a philosophical principle. It's meant to capture this concept that you only believe that matter exists. And if you want to throw in there waves and electricity, by all means, have a ball. Right?
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, and so this is meant to be, this will feel a little redundant because I'll do this with all 4 of these islands, but we're looking at these outside 4 islands that have separated from Kingdom Island, right? And it's those 4 options: only spiritual, only material, they're one and the same, or they both exist and are distinct, right? Materialism is this group of people who is saying there is no spiritual realm. We have words for it, we have ideas about it, but it actually doesn't exist. All we are is the periodic table of elements and whatever other ones we can measure that show up or create, and electricity which animates that, and waves which, whatever waves do, right? And so what we're looking for is the consequences of separating that out. On Kingdom Island, Jesus is the fullness of reality. He's in a body. So God created the material world, which is real. God is spirit, and we worship him in spirit and in truth, right? The Holy Spirit unites us, yet there is distinction. That's Kingdom Island. Jesus represents that for us so beautifully, so fully. These people are saying, none of that other stuff. That unity thing, no. The whole theism thing can't work. There's no creator. And the spiritual realm, angels, spiritual ideals. You know, if you want to, the Buddhists, they're all delusional. They've got it flipped. They've got it inverted. The material realm, anything that we can measure, that's the only thing that's real. The consequences of that are really intense. And I actually, so much so that I come on pretty strong with people who claim to be atheists or materialists to really push, like, do you know what you're saying? Do you know the consequences of believing that? Most have really not thought that through, right? As even adults haven't really thought through the consequences of this. This is why I love Chesterton and Lewis. They've thought this through. Lewis was an atheist for a very long time. I think it was 15 to 17 years. And Lewis's brain on atheism, pretty intense, right? And Chesterton went out looking for the truth and tried out so many things. I think it was 10,000 books, right?
Wow,
And he and Lewis both know how to navigate the consequences of only believing in matter, right? I can keep talking. You have a thought on that?
Yeah, well, it's just the phrase that comes to mind is the idea of if there's no belief in an afterlife, in spiritual anything, or that there is a morality out there, the idea of like, well, then what's the meaning of life to those people? And I think like the famous answer is like, well, right now I'm having a good lunch. And like, that's about it. It's just a matter of what can I experience in my body? What momentary pleasures can I enjoy? But then there's really no goal other than my own pleasure and satisfaction, which leads to a pretty ridiculous hedonistic life. And what's the point of morality other than morality that is self-serving? And that is a pretty big consequence.
And we would lean into this. Like, so since this is a philosophical approach to worldview, I would say yes. And you mentioned morality. It doesn't exist. It can't exist. Because all we are is electrons.
It's just different strategies then, and not like a unified ideal.
It wouldn't even be strategies, was it? Would it? Like, if all we are is electrical impulses running through matter. Do you even have the ability to make a choice?
Or is it entirely determined by just what?
It's all cause and effect.
Wow.
There's no otherness. There's nothing outside or within that's not part of the electrical system to govern it. It's all one thing.
Wow.
And so morality becomes absurd. There,
Yep.
there is no free will or autonomy.
Yeah.
There's the appearance of it.
Yeah.
Kind of like where we would land with AI if it ever gets to sentience, right? But that's the appearance of it, right?
Yeah.
It's actually just electricity running through a big, huge motherboard all connected, right?
Yep.
I'm no expert on that. But the basic structure is that this is all electricity.
Yeah.
And there's no real choice. It's all response,
Yeah.
right? In regards to meaning, we wouldn't. The atheists stopped using the word meaningless because that would imply that there has to be meaning and less of it.
Yeah.
They usher in the word absurd. Life is just absurd or ridiculous, and those have negative connotations. So they just say that life is.
Yeah.
It's experiential. We just experience it. We happen to be aware.
Yeah.
Until we're not. Right.
Yeah.
I find that most teenagers don't like losing authentic morality. Free will, especially.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And, the absurdity of life, well, if you're having a good life, you can kind of handle that until things get really hard.
Yeah.
Right. And so, by separating out from an objective spiritual realm, or at least an otherness,
Yeah.
we're stuck within the material world.
Yeah.
The consequences are dire.
Yeah. What's funny to me about that too, though, is that the idea that countless stories of people who change their mindset, they operate by a different set of beliefs, or aiming at an ideal or a moral or something of value or virtue that causes their life to improve. It's kind of funny there where you could say it's like, well, there's no meaning to that. It's like, but if the idea gets planted, the ethereal idea gets planted into this material, then the material does better because of the ideal that has been placed into it. So it's kind of funny that even if you're just looking at the observable universe, you have to notice that that's a phenomenon that happens over and over again. It's kind of interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like with materialism, I'm not here to bash per se those who believe in the material realm being real, because we're doing this with honor and respect and dignity. And I believe the material realm is really real.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that it's the whole picture.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to honor the fact that I have a body, that the coffee tastes good, that we can live in this material world.
Yeah.
And there's beauty to it. There's also horror.
Yeah.
Right. But if we get rid of that, a God, let alone even just simply an objectivity, a standard outside of humanity.
Yeah.
Again, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, how does this connect back into Kingdom Island then? Because there's a piece of it we could talk about how the idea that it stands alone is absurd, but how is it still part of the kingdom then, if this is the absurd part?
Well, I think what's really intriguing is a lot of people think that atheism is a new concept, or that Nietzsche and his lot ushered some of that stuff in, and then we had the new atheists coming up with this stuff. And I only found a few of them who really push it to its core, Nietzsche being one of them, Sartre and Camus being others, right? The way that it connects is that Solomon says a fool in his heart believes there is no God. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't new.
Yeah.
Atheism, the concept of not believing in God and life being absurd, is clearly played out in Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. I was going to say, it was just like, try this, try this, try this. All of it, complete and utter failure. There is nothing in the created world that actually can bring peace to a man's soul.
Yeah, and he says vanity, vanity. It's interpreted meaningless, right? Without something objectively bestowing value, there is no value.
Yeah.
Right? It just is. It just exists. And that's where Solomon, with unlimited budget and access, tried it all out.
Yeah.
And says, in and of itself, it's valueless. It's meaningless. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, that's not new information. So I think the bridge here is that we understand that what we do in reality is unfolding in time. Without God, it's absurd.
Yeah.
With God, it can have meaning. It can have value. It can have purpose.
Yeah.
With a personal relationship with God, we now are committed into God's story of redemption and all the way through. And now even building his kingdom here and now in this realm, which will be restored and made new. And, all of that.
And even the idea of the idea of I don't believe in God. Why? Because he's not a material thing. It's like, but then there was Jesus. Like if he didn't care about the material world, why would he become a part of it?
Exactly.
And talk about redeeming and restoring it, and even demonstrating mastery over the material world by signs and wonders, these miracles, and even bringing the dead back to life. It's like, clearly I don't play it by the material world. There's more to it than this. But never Jesus saying that the created things don't matter, which I think is fascinating, really connecting those two.
Yeah. And I think that's a nice, big, strong, beautiful bridge.
Yeah.
Is that we don't need to negate the material realm.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to negate the truth that without God, it's absurd. Like, yep, you're right. It is absurd. I agree. Right? Yeah. And so I think there's a powerful bridge to so many truths that the atheist, the materialist, lands on naturally, right? And then we say, but there's more. And that's the bridge. That's the invitation into God having a body, being born as a baby, hugging Mary Magdalene, eating fish on the beach, right? And enjoying relationship, right? Enjoying the material relationship, even trusting that he still has his scars.
Yeah.
Right. And so the material realm is part of the kingdom realm. Right. And so that's a wonderful bridge.
Yeah.
And what I really like about it, too, is that these are fragments. Right. Idealism has broken off into a fragment.
Yeah.
Right. Materialism is a fragment of the truth, but it's a beautiful, powerful fragment of the truth. Yeah. We want to connect them all and watch that play its part.
Yeah. Beautiful. Very cool.
All right.
Let's bring it on home.
Yeah.